Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I'm here to go through my summer TBR. I'm going to do this one the same as my spring TBR, where I'm going to select 6 books off of my physical TBR that I would like to read in June, July, and August. I will say, out of the 6 books that I chose for my spring TBR, I read 2. So not even half. That was a big flop, but hopefully this season will go a little bit better. We have a mix of some contemporary, some romance, a little bit of short story collections. We have a kind of magical realism, a little bit more sci-fi leaning. So we got some good stuff in here. So without further ado, we will go ahead and just jump into the first one. These aren't in any sort of particular order. I just plop them into a stack that is right here, and I will just pull the first one, which is going to be A Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. So Akwaeke Emezi is the author of The Death of Vivek Oji, which was technically my favorite book of 2023. I think I had like a top 3, top 4, but I said if you put a gun to my head, that is my favorite book, and I've been very excited to read some more of their work. And this one is actually on my 24 goals for 2024 bingo board, where I selected 6 books to read this year, including 3 books by authors that I have enjoyed in the past, this being one of them. So it would be really great if I could go ahead and get to it this summer. Now, I'm going to be honest, every time I try to describe this book, I kind of can't. I always feel like I miss some aspect of it, so I don't always like to read the synopsis off the back of the book, but I'm going to go ahead and do that for this one just to give you the best idea of what to expect from this story. So Freshwater tells the story of Ada, an unusual child who is a source of deep concern for her southern Nigerian family. Young Ada is troubled, prone to violent fits, born with one foot on the other side. She begins to develop separate selves within her as she grows into adulthood. And when she travels to America for college, a traumatic event on campus crystallizes the selves into something powerful and potentially dangerous, making Ada fade into the background of her own mind as these alters, now productive, now hedonistic, move into control. So this, I believe, has a little bit of magical realism associated with it. It's going to be probably a bit of a strange story, but this is actually the book that introduced me to Akwaeke Emezi. Someone, I want to say it was just on YouTube, was praising this story, so I am very excited to go ahead and check it out. I really love the way that they told stories, the way they were able to pack so much into such a short story, so I will definitely be prioritizing it this next season. Up next, a very different book, but we like variety here, and that is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This is just your everyday contemporary romance. This was actually a gift from Bailey from Is Bailey Reading, so I would definitely like to go ahead and get to it as soon as possible. I believe this was from Christmas of maybe like 2022, so I missed my opportunity to read it last summer, and I would really like to read it this summer because it takes place in summer. Like, what other season am I supposed to read this in? I believe we are following a rich girl who just parties a little bit too hard, has one too many scandals, and her stepfather sends her to this island to kind of remodel or work at her deceased father's pub or dive bar of a sort. And while she is there, she meets this grumpy crabber. I think he does crabbing of sorts, and obviously that turns into a romance. I have heard mixed things about Tessa Bailey. I feel like she's one of those authors where some people really like her, some people really dislike her, some people like a few of her books but also have a lot of misses with her. So I am a little nervous, but this seems to be one of her more well-known series, more popular series, so I am going into it relatively optimistic, and hopefully it's just a fun summery book that I can take outside in the sunshine and enjoy. Maybe take downtown, read by the water, get into the ocean vibes and all that jazz. And thanks again to Bailey for gifting me this book. I will definitely be trying to get to it this year. Up next, we have another contemporary romance where I'm like, this definitely needs to be read in the summer seasons, and that is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is a writing partnership that I have read from only one other time. I read their book Autobiography, which was a YA queer contemporary story, so I've never read their adult stuff. I have been told that this is Fade to Black, which I admit when I initially got the book was a turnoff for me, but lately I have been more and more happy to read romances that don't have as much smut. I mean, I still enjoy a good smut scene, but it's not like a turnoff for me anymore for someone to be like, there's no smut in here. And I'm like, why would I pick up a romance with no smut? That's not the person I am anymore. So in this book, I believe we are following two people who attend a wedding and they do not get along at all. They consider each other's nemesis of sorts. He, I believe, is the best man and she might be the maid of honor. She's at very least the twin sister of the bride, and she's looking forward to avoiding this guy during the wedding. Unfortunately, at this wedding, it seems that everybody except for her and her nemesis gets food poisoning, and the bride and groom had this non-refundable honeymoon that they then send these two on, and while they're there they fall in love. And that is literally all that I know about the story. I mean, I don't know what else happens in the other 400 pages of this book, but I guess we will go ahead and find out. I'm hoping that it has a nice tropical romantic setting and that maybe they go on some fun adventures and maybe there'll be some yummy descriptions of delicious food. I don't know, but I'm hoping just based off of the cover that it really gives those summer vibes that I'm looking for. All right, so book number 4 on this list is going to be The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. TJ Klune is an author who I would like to read the majority of his work, and this is, I guess, the next book on my list. I have a vlog idea that involves this book that I'm really hoping to get to in the next few months, which is one of the main reasons that I'm putting it on here. I believe this is one of his young adult books. It's the first book in a trilogy in which we are following a young queer man in a world where there are superheroes. He himself doesn't have any powers as far as I know, but he does like writing fan fictions about the heroes, specifically one hero that he has a crush on, and I believe something happens that gives him the opportunity to either work with his hero or to play the part of a hero himself. I do know that this character has, I want to say, ADHD, which TJ Klune himself has, so I'm looking forward to that representation. I'm hoping that it'll just be lighthearted, fun, have TJ Klune's usual humor in it with his quirky characters, and I know that every once in a while he likes to put a deeper message in his story. The majority of the time he puts a deeper message in his stories, so I'm looking forward to reading this and seeing what it is. And as always, I just look forward to reading new books from authors that I have really enjoyed in the past. Up next, we have another queer YA story. In fact, the last two are YA and queer, and that is going to be The Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. I read The Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas a couple years ago now, I want to say, and I absolutely loved it, and I've been meaning to read some more of his work since then, and I haven't heard the best things about. I want to say it was called The Neverwoods, and I'm not super drawn to that story because I'm not a big Peter Pan fan, so I think I'm just gonna avoid that story and check out this trilogy. Is it a trilogy? I want to say that the last book either is coming out or already came out, so now's a good time to get into this story. We seem to be following a young trans boy, and he is living in a society where once a year, is it? No, at the beginning of each decade, so not once a year. At the beginning of each decade, they hold these trials where they bring together some of the highest ranking kids of sorts, and they kind of fight it out or go through these trials to see who gets the honor of lighting the torches at all the temples of their god of soul, and then the loser gets the honor of being the sacrifice, which means that they essentially get killed. And our character is not at this level of the hierarchy where they would usually get chosen for this trial, so they're not worried about it. They're more focused on the fact that their best friend is going to be part of the trials, and they're hoping that she survives and all that, until he realizes that not just one member of his Jade level is being pulled, but two, and that includes him as well as the 13-year-old son of the god of bad luck. And so they set off to these trials to obviously try to win, because no one wants to die and become a sacrifice. So I am looking forward to the story. I've heard relatively good things about it. I have enjoyed this author in the past, and it just sounds like a fun, exciting time. We all love trials, and hopefully we don't grow too attached to the character that ends up having to be a sacrifice in the end. All right, and for the final book, this is primarily a book that I would really like to go ahead and read in the month of June, so next month, and that is Being Ace. And this is a collection of short stories, which is written by all different sorts of, I'm assuming ace, but at the very least queer authors. These are YA stories featuring people with different sexualities, different disabilities, all different sorts of stories. I'm assuming possibly even different genres as well. And as someone who identifies as ace, I figured it would be a good time to read this during Pride Month, just to support my fellow aces. I'm not always super into short stories, so I was a little hesitant to pick this up, but I did want to go ahead and just support this book and the authors represented in it. One of the good things about reading anthologies is sometimes when you do find a story that you like, you can see if that author has written anything else and check out their work. It's always a good way to get a little sampling of some new authors, in this case specifically queer authors. So it's not too long, and hopefully I enjoyed it. It looks like there's maybe like one or two that are actually also poetry instead of a full-length novel, so it should be an interesting read, and I hope that I have a good time with it and can identify with the characters throughout this reading experience as well. All right guys, so these are the 6 books that I would love to get to here in the month of June, or not just the month of June, the month of June, July, and August. I would love to know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I would also love to know what kind of books you like to read in the summer season. Is there any particular book that you are really hoping to read this time of year? And as always guys, thank you so much for your support by watching my channel, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!